Welcome to Voices of the Underground, hosted by Young Ty and Robert Go.
Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of Voices of the Underground. I'm Young Ty, your host, with my co-host Robert Go.
Cheers.
And today,
up, guys?
In the studio, we have Kaotix. You may know him from all his amazing songs that he's put out. His Mass Chaos podcast, which you can catch on the last Sunday of every month at 6 p.m., right? 6 p.m.?
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Eastern time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kaotix.
What's
And
up, man? Good to have you,
Rob. Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be on here, man. I'm glad you guys are doing this.
Yeah, I'm glad too. When Rob was talking about the idea, I was like, we have to do something for the underground. And I believe this EDM underground is going to take off. So,
And it's like, like we were talking before this, I was saying that like we have podcasts for absolutely everything out there, but like this is that one industry that doesn't have anything like this. And it'd be great, especially for the underground where you can get a glimpse of the guys who are like on the come up and see their track record and where they're going. It's great to get a little insider,
And that's just it. Like, I think that's the biggest opportunity, like, I think for growth and even EDM, right? Because we talk about all the time trying to get it out to the States, trying to get it a little bit more mainstream, more popular.
Exactly.
Obviously it had its big boom, but I just think it just needs more exposure. I think that's the underlying factor here.
Definitely.
More people talking about it. Because there's a lot of talented artists, right? Like we've talked about it even before, getting into various Discords, there's a lot of talented guys that just folks don't know about. And I think that's kind of the underlying thing here is to kind of get these guys forward and, and get this thing mainstream again.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And I feel like one of the people that needs to be pushed is Kaotix. Like you make great music, man. I love everything you put out. You're doing a great job with being an A&R at Outrave. So
yeah, thanks, man. Thanks.
So let's get into it a little bit. How did you?
Yeah, let's break the ice.
Yeah, how did you start music, or do you even want to go before that? What did you do before music?
All right, so before that, as a lot of people probably know, probably through Instagram, social media, I kept it quiet for a little bit because, as you guys know, I talk to you guys periodically. Yeah. War can be a controversial subject. It involves not some very nice things, and sometimes even the purpose of it can be very controversial in itself. But I was in the United States Army. I only did 4 years in the U.S. Army. It's something I want to do my whole life. Like it was like ingrained in my head after 9/11, and it's crazy that we're only a few days away from the anniversary, right? We're all from the U.S. here, and it's a day we all recognize. And I remember, it was one of those things where it's like, they were saying, I don't want to say, that guy's name, but the leader of Al Qaeda was, responsible for these attacks. And I remember, TV would play over and over again all these terrorist training camps and, all the attacks that the leader of Al Qaeda conducted on the United States previous. And, it got me like fired up, and I was like, I want to go back. I want to go there, and I want to get revenge. But like, there's only one problem: is I was 8 years old. I'm like, how do I do this as an 8-year-old, right? So then life goes on, and I'm still trying to figure out, like, is this a thing I'm going to do when I get out of high school? Is this a thing? And lo and behold, we all know, how that ended. The Afghan war was still going on. I graduated in 2010. I took a year off from high school to kind of like figure out, like, is this really what I'm going to do? Or do I want to go to college? I kind of took a year off to think about that. Because music was not in my head at all. Music was not a thing. Like music was a thing I would do as fun. Like I was a drummer, I was a guitarist, I was a pianist. It was like a hobby. I would do it for fun. So I joined the United States Army in 2012. I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training. I signed up as an 11 Bravo, which is an infantryman. And from there, I got stationed to Fort Drum, New York, where the 10th Mountain Division is. And I got put into a unit that was already deployed. And they were, trying to push us all to go to like Ranger school, air assault school, which I thought was all great and dandy, but I was like kind of heartbroken. I was like, no, I want to go do what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And it was like a month in, I'm there for like a month. And they were like, hey, we need volunteers to go to a different unit that is going to Afghanistan in the next coming months. And I immediately like rose my hand. And like no one else did. They were like, what? You're crazy, bro. You just got here. I'm like, no, this is what I signed up to do. So like they were like, all right, fall out of formation, go change into your uniform and go report over there. You're going to go over there now. And it was an interesting thing because there was, I don't know, it was like 200 people in front of that brigade headquarters that were all transferring from different units to go to this unit. I guess this unit needed a lot of numbers to go to deployment. And there was this like one girl like way out like towards the parking lot, like, just screaming my name. And I'm like, yeah, this is me. And she's like, what are you doing over there? Like, you're going to this company. And I was like, by myself, while there's like groups of dudes going all these other places. And I'm going over here. So I get put in this one company and they're asking me if I got like a security clearance and all this stuff. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, I need a security clearance to deploy. Like, no, but we're deploying with 3rd Special Forces Group. I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought that was kind of interesting. So I deployed with 3rd Special Forces Group, completely separate from the rest of the entire brigade when they deployed. So they deployed a month before us. We went a month after them. And we were in Special Operations Task Force Northeast, so the northeastern area of the country. Conducted a lot of cool special operations stuff. We did a lot of cool stuff, a lot of kinetic fights we got into, which was like, bad memories, good memories. It was a pretty interesting time. And I want to backtrack a little bit before the deployment because this is kind of where this transition started. So when you're like getting mentally prepared to go on a deployment, you're like thinking of all the things you wish you did, before going. So I'm like, man, I always wanted to go to a nightclub. So me and my friends were like, yo, tonight we're going to go to a nightclub. So we went to a nightclub, and I swear I had the time of my life. Like the time of my life.
Who did you go see?
It was a Long Island local DJ, so it wasn't anyone big. But he plays like all the big hits, like all the big dance hits. Yeah. So he's playing like Martin Garrix's Animals at the time, He was playing like the Blaster Jacks and Tiesto, and I was just completely falling in love with this music.
Wait, it went from what nightclub was this, Adam?
This was in Blue. The nightclub was called Blue in Blue Point, Long Island.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't like a big nightclub. It was a more local nightclub, but I mean, like we had like 400 or 500 people in there, and it was a really good time. Then we were going out to like Pasha, New York City, which most people probably know Pasha, New York, because Pasha, I believe, is all over the world, right? You got a Pasha in Ibiza.
Yeah, you got multiple.
You have a Pasha, in Australia. Like there's a bunch of Pashas. Mm-hmm. So, we were doing all that, and I was like, man, this is a lot of fun. So I was like, I kind of want to party up before the inevitable of what might happen happens, like, I don't want to say it, but like, in case I got killed in action or something happened to me, I wanted to live it up.
You want to have some fun.
Exactly. So I went on this deployment, and it was pretty bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm not going to boast it. Like, it was a pretty bad deployment. We lost some guys, unfortunately, and there's a lot of firefights we got into, and I made it out, luckily, not a scratch on my body. And I came home and I immediately started partying again. And it wasn't in like a bad way. I wasn't like losing control of myself or getting screwed up, getting drunk.
No, but you're having a good time
like that. I was having a good time because I was like, hey, like I'm back. I made it, and like now I want to celebrate that I made it out. So how are we gonna do this? We're gonna go back to the nightclubs. And it wasn't about chasing the women or getting lit anymore. It was like I want to chase that music I missed so much that I haven't heard for like 10 months to a year, right? So I remember, man, it was like me and one of my friends. We were at this one nightclub, and the DJ was just awful. Like it was a really bad DJ.
It kills the vibe.
He would play like top dance track and then like Lil Jon getting low, right? And I'm like, come on, man, it's 2014. I don't want to hear this. I heard this in like 2006. Like my middle school dances. Like, come on, man, it's getting hot in here. So take off all your. I'm like, come on. So my friend looks at me. He's like, dude, we could be better DJs than that. And I was like, we could. Like with a serious face. I was like, wait, hold on. Like, really, we could do this. And to backtrack even before that, I was messing with FL Studio when I was a kid, like 12, 13, 14 years old, when a friend introduced me to Bass Hunter, and I got really into electronic dance music, but didn't like fully dive in. I was playing around with it just to see what it was because I wanted to know people made dance music. Yeah. So I downloaded FL Studio, the DAW I hate so much.
Oh, come on.
And I just started going to town.
It's the starter DAW for sure.
It is. Hey, look, I'm going to be honest. It is a starter DAW. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, there's some things that I think are wrong with it, and it has actually nothing to do with the DAW itself.
Oh no, the DAW
comes
the DAW
on the other
itself
side of the
is
DAW.
fine. I think it's operator errors that come with it.
Yes.
Man, we're gonna get so much hate mail already right off the bat.
Yeah, come
No,
on.
we're not. No, we're not.
Everybody out there, I'm an FL Studio user, so
That's
a
all
real
right.
thing. Maybe we can get into that later if you guys want.
Yeah,
But you know, I started on FL Studio, and I remember I watched like this FM magazine video of when that was a big thing. FM magazine. You're seeing like Armin van Buuren in the studio and a bunch of other big guys. I think they kind of tanked after the Alan Walker thing, right?
Yeah.
If you guys remember that one. And I see Armin van Buuren in this other program called Logic. And I'm like, Logic, that looks like a nicer program. And I want my music to sound like his. So I want to be in there. So I started messing around in Logic Pro. And it was more like kind of get adjusted to the DAWs versus like learning how to write music and the mixing and the mastering and all that kind of stuff. And eventually I got out of the Army. I decided I didn't want to stay in. I decided I didn't want to go on any more deployments. That one deployment was enough for me. I think, you know, this is where I kind of call it quits. You know, I got what I wanted out of the Army, and I want to move on to bigger and better things. And music was one of them. So I started taking it a lot more serious. Even before I got out of the Army, I was getting residencies in local clubs on Long Island, New York.
That's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah, especially, you know, when you didn't know what the heck you were doing, you know, like, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And you learn really quickly too. You learn really quickly. You learn like demographic, you learn the places you should and you shouldn't DJ at, or even if you're DJing at this one spot, maybe you should change up what you're playing here versus what you're playing over here.
Crowd.
And, you know, I didn't have anyone. Yeah, exactly. Reading the crowd. And I didn't have anyone to tell me, you know, all that kind of stuff. I kind of literally learned it from just simple, like, personal experience. And I remember my first time I got booked as a resident DJ, you know, when they were like, hey, we want you to play here like every Saturday, do your whole like EDM thing. That's all we want to hear. That like the hip hop crowd was coming in and they were just like, not digging this. And I'm like, okay. You know, like, okay, I'm starting to catch this on. I'm starting to catch on to this, that this place is more of a hip hop place. That place likes the dance music stuff. Okay, there I'll do maybe hybrid trap, maybe, right, with some like big hip hop mashups, right? And over there I'll do my EDM stuff. So I started doing that, and then I decided to go to school for audio engineering because I wanted to learn what the heck I was going to get myself into. So I went to a school called SAE Institute, and those schools are actually all over the globe. They have them they have one in London, they have one in Amsterdam, Paris, they have one in New York City, they have one in LA, Miami, New Zealand. They're all over the the globe pretty much. And I was going to go to a place called Dubspot. I don't know if Ty, if you're familiar with Dubspot out in Brooklyn. Okay, so they were a school that also, you know, said that they'll teach you electronic music, DJing, all that kind of stuff. But it was like a 8 to 9 week course. It wasn't really like a school. It was more of like a, you know, you sign up and you learn some things. Apparently around this time when I was looking at going into schools, they got sued for being basically a scam, stealing people's money, holding no classes. And I was like, I don't think I want to go there. I want to go to this place instead. I went and took a tour of this school. This school had like 5 different studios that were fully soundproof and acoustically treated so beautifully. They had an SSL G series console, which if anyone knows, it's like a $500,000 console.
Dude, that's the real deal.
Yeah, and I was like, you know, they had another room that had a Neve 88R. If no one knows what that is, Deadmau5 actually has one in his studio now. Those are close to $750,000.
Jeez.
And these were all in like great working condition. And I'm like, I think I'm going to get a pretty good education here. And I remember my first day at that school when I got out of the Army, they were like, if you are here to think you're going to make so much money working in Jay-Z's studio, there's the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Good thing I'm only here to learn for myself. And like, I don't know about everyone else in here, but I'm just here to learn for myself, to do my own thing. So I was like, no, I'm here for me. So like I stayed put with a big smile on my face. I'm like, I'm here to learn. And that was a great school. I learned so much. I learned so much about mixing, mastering, even melody writing, even though they don't really go so much into that. It's more of an audio engineering school where you're the engineer. You learn how to, you know, record vocalists, learn how to use the consoles, learn how to mix, use the DAW, all the different plugins, how to use compression, EQ, the best way to use EQ versus boosting versus subtracting, right? And I learned so much from that school, and it was great. And going to school in Manhattan is like, like a lifetime experience. You'll never forget.
Really
That
is,
was
yeah.
definitely. And not only that, it's like it's not like going to college where everyone around you has a different agenda of what they want in life. Everyone around you wants the same thing. So you all collaborate with each other. You all will book a studio for a night, and we would be open till 2 a.m. So you can book like the SSL room till 2 o'clock in the morning. So you can be in there for like 6 hours. All of you just working on music together, even though it's not your style. Like this guy wants to work on some hip hop track and you want to record him. You would sign out like an AKG C414. If anyone doesn't know what that is, it's like a $4,000 microphone, but we had like 6 of those. This school is pretty dope.
Sounds stacked.
Yeah. It was pretty sick. So, you learn how to use the microphones. You learn how to work with artists, and that was like cool because it's like it's my students, it's my fellow classmates, but like I'm treating them as if they're the artist. They booked me and I'm going to record them, even though it's like we're just kind of like fake playing this, but like we're working on tracks together. No, we got producers, we got mixers, masters, recorders, and then we got the artists in the studio. And it's like you putting this whole thing together. And I was like, wow, so this is pretty sick. And I took all those skills and I graduated that school and I started to apply it to my own music. And we didn't really go too much into electronic dance music there, which was sort of a bummer, but I mean, the same rules apply. The same rules apply with mixing, mastering, using the DAW, everything. And that's where I got introduced to Ableton.
Yeah.
The DAW that I'm seeing a lot of people move to. So Rob, I know you're using Ableton, right?
It's the DAW for adults.
I would say it's the DAW.
Oh,
no.
No, come
on.
Okay. I mean, I really had any interest in getting into Ableton Live, and we worked in modules at this school, so it wasn't like semesters; it was modules. The school was only a year long, right? It's not like you get like a bachelor's degree out of it. You do get like it's a diploma, so it's like a trade school. And my second module, we had his name was Tony Grund. He is an A&R, artist in relations, at Nervous Records, which is a pretty big music label out of New York City, out of Brooklyn. And they sign like, techno, tech house type stuff. You'll probably see them all over Beatport if you're into that kind of stuff, Nervous Records. He's the A&R over there and an artist there. And this was my teacher, and he worked in Ableton. And I remember being told throughout every module, it's like, you make dance music? Why don't you use Ableton? And I was like, no, Logic. I like Logic.
Same.
So of course now, we're in a module where we're learning Ableton, and I'm forced to use Ableton. I'm like, I just stopped caring. I'm like, I'm never going to use this. I wasn't even paying attention half the time. And then like, my ear would catch something when he would say something cool about Ableton that you couldn't do in any other DAW at all. So I was like, wait, what? Repeat that. You said I could do what in this, what? I don't know if you can do this in FL Studio, Ty, because I know you work in FL Studio, but I know in Ableton, if you have like a track made, right?
Yeah.
And you save it and you want to work on another track, and you were thinking like, that whole lead group that I had with all those leads in that last track with all that processing on it, I could really use that in this track. Where in Ableton, you can go to that project file, click it, and it will show you all your tracks, and you can literally just drag them into the new project you're working in, and it loads in. Just like how it was in that last track with all the same processing and everything. And I was like, can you do that in other DAWs? And I tried.
I might switch to Ableton eventually.
To merge
this is what we're trying to tell you.
Okay. Sorry, FL Studio fans.
But to merge the buses, though, I just learned that not too long. I had a buddy in Portugal, and a really talented kid. And he taught me that, like how to kind of merge projects. And, like I had kind of a dead project, and I was like, man, the drop was good. Everything else wasn't very good, but to go in and reduplicate that, it seemed like a lot of work. And he was like, no, just open it up and you can drag it into a new project. And
it's literally click and drag.
Yeah. It's crazy. That's
I know.
Integrate like that.
And if you make like a good, like effects chain for leads, or a good, bus, like effects chains for like a lead bus or something, you can highlight all those plugins and group them and then save that group and call it like Kaotix leads bus. And then it's like every time you work on a new project and it's like, I want that same processing on this entire bus, you just literally type in the search bar Kaotix lead bus, and that whole thing drags in with all those plugins at those same settings.
Yeah.
And you could, you could do your little tweaks if you have to make it sound good for that specific track. But I was like, man, this is revolutionary. So the final project we had, that module, was we were given 10 samples, and they said we have to use all 10 samples. And you could add to it, obviously, if you have synths, you can use them. If you have other samples, you can use them. But all 10 samples had to be used. And you got to make a track out of these 10 samples using Ableton Live. I made a track in like 2 hours, and I got 100 on this track.
Damn.
I was the only person in my entire class who got 100 on this. I made some weird bass house, G house track or something like that. I can't remember what it was. I don't even think I have it on here anymore. I should
pull it up. We got to hear this.
I don't think so. It was so long ago. We're talking 2016.
What you got over there, Rob?
This is the drink of champions. It's the Apple Jack Daniels. And I highly recommend it for
demonetized.
Yeah.
There goes the sponsorship.
Okay. We are not officially sponsored Voices of the Underground. However,
you got to say that by law.
But we highly encourage drinking.
If you're of age. Yeah. If you're of age.
If you're of age. Because like what? Rob, you're like 49, 48, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah, I'm man, fuck. No, yeah, I just turned 40 a couple of months ago. So I'm the senior citizen on the circuit right now.
I'm about to be 29.
Yeah, same here.
3 weeks.
You guys always remind me of that. Every time I talk to you guys, you always remind me of, hey, still in my 20s. Oh,
it's going to make you work harder, man. It's going to make you work harder.
Give me one more year and I'm in my 30s. Give me one more year and I'm in my 30s, all right?
Same.
It's wisdom.
So
it's wisdom.
Yeah.
So if we want to fast forward after SAE Institute, that's just kind of when I just started grinding. After that, I decided to go to community college. We get paid to go to college out of the Army. So not only do they pay for your college, but they pay you to go to college, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So it's like going to college as a job, and people go, "Oh, you're so lucky." It's like, no, man, I had to go through quite a lot. Yeah, to work for that, and I'm not saying I deserve it or anything like that, but it's true. Like you have to go through quite a lot to earn that. You take into account the basic training, getting shoot out while you're in garrison meaning like you're stateside, getting ready to deploy and training. Then you have to do the deployment, and deployment's like the real deal. There's no turning back. There's no respawn, right? Or anything like that. And then you got to deal with it all afterwards, pretty much for the rest of your life. You're always thinking about it, and it doesn't ever leave your mind. It's an unforgettable experience.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Went to school. I went to community college. I originally was going to major in psychology until I realized there's no money in that at all.
It's tough. That's tough to
it's tough. So I was like, I don't want to be a guidance school counselor, but I am learning some cool psychological stuff. So I think we're going to go to marketing. So I changed my major to marketing, which was way better, and I have a job now doing that. So from when I was going to community college, it was great. Like I had one class a day for an hour and a half, and then I'd come home and I'd be in the studio every day, just working, perfecting, trying to, engineer, I would listen to my favorite artists, right? And I would just be like, how do they get that sound? And I just keep fiddling. And then I released Mike Williams and Dastic.
I remember that track, yeah.
Remix, and it was in the top 50 on Spinnin' Records. It was an official Spinnin' Records remix contest, and it was in the top 50 out of I think it was 8,000 submissions. And I didn't promote it at all. I literally just clicked the upload button and said, let's see what happens. And I was in the top 50. At first, I was in the top 20, and then it started kind of getting knocked down a little bit. But to be in the top 50, to me, I was like, that is fantastic. Wow, this is the first a Kaotix thing I put out. Now, backtrack before that, just a little quick story was I was actually in a duo with a friend, an old friend from high school, where him and I were getting into this whole, and he was the one at the bar where it's we could be better DJs than this, right? And that was definitely the experience where I said, don't ever get into a duo. I don't know if you guys want to get into that.
You don't want to make one with me?
No.
Application
well, okay.
denied.
So, it really depends. So this is where I say don't ever get into a duo, but then this is also where I say it depends. Don't ever get into duos with your best friend that probably has never dabbled with music ever in his life, where, you know, like I said earlier, I was a guitarist, a drummer, a pianist. Such a weird word, pianist. I like to play the piano, you know? And he just didn't do any of that. So when it was like time for us to be in the studio, you know, I guess a little admittance here, like we would smoke some weed in the studio. We would work on songs together, and he would just kind of sit there like kind of buzzed and just like blank out, not have any input. And not, I mean, I'd be like, hey, you know, you want to work on something a little bit here? And he would be like, yeah, I got some ideas. And he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And I'm like, I kind of got to rethink this duo. So I found a nice way to kind of kill it. Was like, hey man, I'm going to start a new project that's basically that's mainly solo, and I'm going to make that my priority, is the solo project. And he took it great. He was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, just letting you know, like, you know, I don't want this to affect our friendship, because him and I are, you know, to this day are still best friends. And I you know, that was the biggest thing I was afraid of, is like, is this going to kill my friendship with my friend? And 9 times out of 10 I didn't want it. Right. And that's why I say don't get into duos, especially if it's like with just like your best friend or something like that, because it could kill your friendship when like you're trying to get into a business and you don't want to kill your, you know, a friendship over business. So I found out a good way to kill it. I did ask some people at school, like, hey, how do you think I should approach this? And they were like, just tell them. And I'm like, I can't just tell them. Like, I gotta like ease them into it. And they told me, like, hey, just start like your own thing. Tell them that that's your priority now, and this is like your secondary. I was like, okay, yeah, that works. So you know, that's how it went, and that's when I started a project which involved my full name, because I was like, Armin van Buren. That sounds.
Wait, I didn't know about
very.
That.
I didn't either.
See, no one.
Whoa!
No one knows about
breaking
this.
News.
Okay, backing it up.
A full name project. I don't even know your name.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, you do.
Not your full name. I've known you for a year. I don't know your full name. So the fact that this is actually an artist name that's existent somewhere is like fucking mind blowing.
After this gets uploaded, I'm gonna have to change my name on Facebook.
Oh boy.
It's Adam D. And then there's a lot of letters that come after that, and
okay.
It rhymes with Harley Davidson.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it took a while for Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know now. I know your name. Okay, my bad.
So I was using that, and a lot of people were telling me like that name doesn't click, and I was like, listen, it works. Armin uses it, Martin Garrix uses it, until I IMDb'd them, not IMDb, wikied them, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not even their real name. Martin Garrix's name is like it's like 6 different names all chopped up, and I'm like, he just picked what sounded nice. And it was like TBR. I love TBR to death, by the way.
Yeah.
I know we didn't want to do the whole name dropping thing, but
kid.
TBR is like, we're going to talk about someone who's really talented. It's him. But I remember him talking about one time, people were asking him, like, what does TBR stand for? He's like, nothing. I just thought it sounded cool. I'm like, this man's onto something. Yep. Yeah. This man, I should probably do something that sounds cool versus like using my name. So I remember I played a show on Valentine's Day. It was again, a local Long Island club. Most of the places I played were like local Long Island clubs and stuff. It was a really fun show, and I played. It was a straight big room show. This is when I was like fully invested into big room. And my friend Stacy comes up to me and she says, she was really drunk. She's like, that show is really Kaotix. I was like, it was what? She's like, chaotic. I was like, no, what did you say before that? She was like, what did I say? I'm like, you said it was Kaotix, like in plural. So I went home that night thinking like, I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking. So I was like,
that's how.
I didn't know that either.
That's how I came up with the name Kaotix. But here's the kicker to it, right? Okay, so I used to be a pro Call of Duty player when I was 14, 15 years old, right? And my gamer tag was Chaos, spelled with a K, Kaos.
It's meant to be
125. It was Chaos 125. So when she said that, I was like, Kaotix with a K. And I wrote that down on Photoshop and made a logo, and I was like, I think this is going to be it, right? Like this sounds about right.
You're telling me history was made because of a drunk club goer who was slurring their words, most likely.
She was actually my opener. But yeah, she was a DJ too, but she was my opener. So yeah. But yeah,
Wow.
basically, yeah. Some
Man.
drunk girl who slurred her words is how I got the name
High
Kaotix.
five to her, man. She I don't even know if she knows how much she changed history.
She needs to get paid.
But now she's going to see this and come back with royalties like that Nirvana lawsuit.
Actually, now that I think about it, I haven't talked to her in a really long time. And
drop her a thanks. Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know where she's been. I think she's like deleted social media. You know, people get sometimes with that, you know. And I don't know. Maybe I should like try to hit her.
Thank
back
you,
up.
whoever you are.
Yeah.
You changed
Stacy.
history.
Her name was Stacy.
Oh, Stacy.
And she said that, and I was like, that literally planted a seed in my head. There's some Inception stuff right there, right?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, like
that's cool, man.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Isn't that funny?
Put me under, and
isn't that funny how you can get a name from anywhere like that?
I feel like that's quite, how a lot of people,
yeah,
not to change this whole podcast around, but like, Rob, how did you guys get the name Project 10K?
Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah.
Curious.
So no, that's a good question. So the 10K stands for 10,000 hours, right? Because that's the idea. If you master something, typically after 10,000 hours, you've achieved that.
True.
So it was like, okay, so that has like a meaning, right? Like we have to work every day, and it's really that commitment to 10,000 hours. So we're like, okay. So first it was just 10K, but then it kind of sounded like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like urban groups and rappers and things that were called that, right? Because obviously it's like related to like diamonds and things like that. So we're like, okay, how do we separate ourselves? But we really wanted to keep the root of that. And then we just went with Project 10K. Like this is the price. So it's Project 10,000 hours. And I mean, you guys know, when you guys get started in producing or whatever endeavor, it is so incredibly hard. Like I started on Logic and it was hard. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like everyone else, you watch a YouTube tutorial and then it gets even more complicated after that because you're like, I don't know how to do that. But anyways, so that was the thing. It was like, so anytime there was no bad days, like even right now, I still kind of have that mentality. Like there's no bad days in the studio because I'm putting in my goal to get 10,000 hours. So.
Exactly.
I totally resonate with that 100%. And even any day where I'll be in the studio and it's like, I'm just having a bad day. I'm uninspired. This track sucks, whatever. It's like, no, it's not a bad day. You learned what's not good.
Any
you know what to not do now.
Yeah.
So now the next time you go in the studio, you know a different way to approach it. So it's like, exactly, you never having a bad day in the studio. And I like that. The whole 10,000 hours thing, Project 10K. I like that. The meaning behind that, and putting all the hard work in to perfect your skill in being an electronic dance music producer.
Yeah. It's hard, man. Like every day it's always a new challenge, but yeah, because especially So the reason I really latched onto that name is because when I first started, 2019, I entered a contest. It was a song contest. I forget the name of this company. I'm sure everyone's done it before, but long story short, it's a future bass contest because that was in 2018, 2019. And I finished dead last out of this contest. There must have been so the opposite of you. So there was, I don't know, there was maybe 500 contestants or how many entries there were. I was dead last. I looked at my little profile and I was like 509 of 509. I was like, fuck. Well, that day I learned not future bass, but I also learned I learned that like, okay, this is just time. This is all just getting to a goal of a bigger thing, and that was really that was really the 10K thing. It was like, okay, if I look at it this way, I spent X amount of hours working on this track to finish dead last. Well, that's X amount of hours closer to my 10,000 hours. Right. So that was my whole thing with that. And then Ty, how'd you come up with your name? Cause I think I asked you this before.
Yes.
On Instagram.
You have. And, I'm not embarrassed to say it, but I'll say it anyways. Back in 2009, I started rapping, and my grandpa.
Oh, rapper Ty over here.
Yeah, don't look it up.
So looking it up.
So my grandfather gave me the name. He was like, "Hey Ty, young Ty, get over here," because I was about 16. So young Ty, that kind of works because you don't want to know what I was named before that.
Well, I think we all do now.
All right.
Wait, what?
Say that again?
Yeah, maybe you should have kept maybe you should have kept that quiet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No going back now.
But hey, we all learn from our mistakes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all learn from our mistakes, and it's like, it's like you, Rob, right? Like you finished like dead last. Like, did you learn anything from those maybe mistakes? I wouldn't even say mistakes, but did you learn anything from that experience?
Yeah. I learned that Logic sucks, and I'm going to Ableton.
Yeah, there you go.
That was shortly after I did do that. But yeah, no, right? Like you do learn that, like, because it's all this whole thing is trial and error, because there is no like handbook exactly how to do it, right? Like if you want to build an engine, there's a step by step, right? If you're building some shit from anywhere from IKEA, there's no steps on that. But like,
and there is a right and wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
But for this,
yeah, it really
there
is.
isn't.
There
really isn't. So if we're gonna get on the topic of learning from mistakes, I think this would be an interesting thing to go into. Is so I was producing Big Room a lot. I got dragged to a Blaster Jack show, and this is where I saw Zax. This is where I saw Modi, Jules, and Sparks before anyone even knew who they were. I saw Blaster Jack. Sadly, it was the first show without Eater, and I saw Firebeats. It was one of the best times of my life. Yeah, this was in the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. That was pretty fun. I went to that show, and I was making a lot of Big Room, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to make, because I really like that sound. There were so many different sounds of EDM, and at the time I couldn't really differentiate what was what, but that was the night I really understood what Big Room was. I was like, I really dig this shit. So I was making a lot of Big Room, and I was like, I told you guys, as I was saying throughout this podcast, is I was doing a lot of local shows, right, with local clubs, and I was like, no, I'm living in New York. I want to play the big clubs in Manhattan. I feel like I'm there. So I started contacting a lot of promoters, and they would be like, now this was 2017, and we all know how Big Room was doing then. It was kind of like, dwindling down, right? So and that's where the whole Big Room is dead, Big Room never dies started to come around. Just to put it out there,
you got the hat on, Rob.
I'll tell you
I've got I'm a walking billboard for this, because I mean, we could talk about that later in life, but I agree with you. It was on life support. I think that's fair to say.
I wouldn't say it's on life support. I would just say that it got locked in a closet, and people lost the key, but someone found it, and I think 2022 is going to be a very interesting year when it comes to festivals. But I digress. So I was talking to a lot of promoters, and man, if you say the word Big Room to them, they almost hung up the phone on you.
It's almost toxic. It has like this negative Brad and Chad kind of like condensation to it, and you're just like, it's what people want, like when they go to these festivals, and I still believe that in 2021. I still believe that. I don't think I know guys like Kashmir have kind of gotten off that sound, but quite frankly, when you look at guys who've made their name, your Umid started a little under trance and whatnot, but when they made their like big names, it was through Big Room. Okay, and even like guys,
I mean, even Headhunters. I didn't even know who Headhunters was until he got in the Big Room. I didn't know he was all like full-fledged hard style. Then like here he comes in Big Room, and now I know who he is. And then he goes back to hard style. I don't think he really truly went there because he thought Big Room was just this dying genre. I think he just felt this emptiness, and he like this loss of identity of like, wait, this is not who I am. And he just went back to hard style. And I'm still a Headhunters fan. I will still listen to that, and I'm not a big hardstyle guy, but like I will listen to his hardstyle because now he's gained a fan through a different genre he'd experimented with, and now I followed him through his hardstyle journey. So I got in contact with this one promoter, and he was very interested to book me. He thought my mixing style was very good. It's like a very Blaster Jacks type style, is what I've been told. I mix in a very Blaster Jacks style. Very rough cuts and very seamless, like almost techno style, where you're like switching bass lines while the other track is still playing and stuff like that. And he was like, can you mix trap music? And I was like, trap as in like hip hop trap? He was like, no, like hybrid trap, like EDM trap. And I didn't even know what that was. And I was like, I mean, I don't know. He's like, if you could do that, we'll book you. So that night, I started looking up all these artists like Boombox Cartel and Nightmare and all these guys. I'm not gonna lie, I got hooked. I was like, this is actually a pretty sick genre.
Yeah,
and it was that year in 2017. I went to Electric Zoo in New York City, And that was the year of hybrid trap. Every artist on the main stage, every artist at every other stage, that's what they were playing was hybrid trap. Boombox Cartel, I got to see them. I got to see Nightmare. The year after that, I got to see Nightmare back to back with Shaq. That was pretty interesting. And I was like, I kind of mess with this genre. It's all right, but it's like I still like big room.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Let's experiment. Let's do it. So if anyone was ever curious, you can go look up right now on YouTube, Kaotix Apollo. It was my first trap release ever that a lot of people actually liked.
It is.
It's a banger. Don't sell yourself short. It should bang.
Here's the thing with that track was like I put no effort into it. I really didn't. I'm going to be straight up honest with myself and with everybody who listens to this is I put no effort into that at all. And it was like that track I made, and I made a second one after that I released, but I self-released it, then I took it down because I released Apollo with All Things Trap, which is like a huge trap. It's like a Nick Cooper, like Nick Cooper is a label, but he'll also post your track as a promotion.
Yeah.
That's kind of what All Things Trap was too. It's like, it's Nick Cooper for trap music, but I think they had like 2.3 million subscribers at the time or something like that. And at the time, that was when hybrid trap was actually at its downfall, and I thought that was kind of interesting because I didn't get a lot of plays on it, but I got a lot of good feedback on it and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was my lesson. Was like, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah,
I like big room, and it was that year. I remember I came home, kept coming home. So I was living in New York at the time. My family was in Florida. I came home for spring break. I came home for spring break. And I remember I was sitting in my room and I'm watching the Ultra Music Festival live in 2017. And up comes this artist name no one ever heard of, and their name is New Year. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's W&W.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but they're playing this style that I've heard before, but it was different. This big room trance stuff, right? So I was like, wait a minute. I immediately got into EDM through trance, and then I went to big room. You mean to tell me that there's a blend of the two? So that's where I started to kind of like come in. Was like, I think I'm gonna hop on this train before it leaves. This big room trancey type stuff, and some of my tracks have like they're trancey vibes, and some of them don't. Like I kind of just make what I like to make. But that was my biggest influence after that. I am I'm going back to big room. I don't care what any promoter tells me. I don't care what any label tells me. And this is where I developed that idea of I don't care what anybody tells me. I'm going to make big room, and I'm just going to keep doing it. I don't care if it dies. I don't care if it's on the brink of dying. I don't care if it's main stage. I'm going to keep making this genre because I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So New Year was kind of that push, that debut of New Year at Ultra at the State of Trance stage was that initial push. That's when I started talking a lot to Hussman a lot. Him and I got connected pretty well. We would talk back and forth on Instagram. I would show him some of my ideas, get some feedback on it. He actually has a video where he did a demo review, and he showed my track Galactica, where he was like totally blown away by this track, which honestly was a track I didn't think was going to go anywhere until I saw the support it got. I totally just skipped like 3 songs after that, but like, because I released Interstellar, another track that Hussman totally enjoyed. And there was Love on Fire, which got supported by a lot of big names that I did with Machado. That was my first label release on a label that was brand new. I was like, I don't know if I should do this. This is scary. It's like I thought I was going to get on Quartzo. Quartzo was big at the time, or Cell Recordings. Let's not get into them. But
that's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. But I was like, I knew, because Machado was like, hey, it's a new label. It's started by Daniel Azumi, and I was like, wait, yeah, I'll take that risk. Azumi's got a really good thing going on YouTube, right? So I was like, yeah, why not? And it did great. It did fantastic. It got supported by Tiger Lily, Wolfpack. It got supported by so many big names. And I was like, yeah, I guess that wasn't a bad idea, right? So then I made this track Galactica. It was a very long process to make that track, especially getting it signed, because some things I don't want to get into that are kind of personal. You guys know about them from, talking to you guys personally, but I won't talk about on this podcast,
Sure.
but that got signed through Outrave, and I sent that to W&W. They didn't send me any emails back, but they downloaded it from SoundCloud, and I was like, are they going to play this?
Nice.
And it was around the week of Tomorrowland. And I remember they posted something on Instagram saying, like, send us your demos. You know, what should we play for Tomorrowland? Because they just finished Ultra Europe, which is in Croatia. And I'm going to send them this and see what they think. You know, what harm does this do? And they downloaded it, and I was like, are they going to play us there in Tomorrowland? And they didn't. And I was totally fine. You know, I was totally fine. But I was like, well, what does this mean now? Are they going to contact me in any way? And I know that, you know, Ward and Will can get kind of weird when it comes to how they look at demos and stuff. But it ended up being played in Rave Culture 2 weeks after that. I was like, wow, this is
awesome.
Pretty awesome.
That's a big accomplishment.
It's huge.
And I remember flipping out when I saw that on 1001 track list. I was like, what? This just got played by W&W. That was pretty awesome. And then it got supported by Jackson Vega. Sabers wasn't doing any mixes at the time, but I was getting a lot of good feedback from Sabers saying like, hey, Galactica's an awesome track. You know, keep up the good work. So they weren't doing any mixes at the time, so I wouldn't call it support, but, you know, good feedback from them saying like, hey, good track. So it was getting a lot of support. It was getting played by everybody. I think it's like the one track on 1001 track list. If I look at like the track lists of who played it and mixes, just goes and goes and goes.
That's awesome. That's a great feeling, man.
So that was it from there. After that, you know, I was like, hey, I think Kaotix is the thing, and this is the sound. And I didn't want to stick to this one particular sound that Galactica kind of brought to the table. I kind of wanted to keep experimenting with different sounds, and that's how Kaotix became Kaotix.
That's good. You know, it's interesting before we get off, because I want to ask you about your radio show. I do want to ask, but I had a thought, not to be overly dramatic here.
No, go ahead.
But, you know, I've heard your kind of the inception of basically your music career, and even before so. And I go back to it, what you said about the local DJ. The first club you went to before you went off to serve, the local DJ, and the impact that DJs can have on people. And I don't know that some of the producers who, you know, say, hey, I'm a DJ just because they play their music. I don't think they kind of understand, you know, how much of an impact they can have on people, a crowd. There's a person in there who, you know, they don't know it yet, but might be attracted to big room, right? Or they might be attracted to whatever it is that they're playing. And I think DJs, that's why I have a lot of respect for real DJs, you know, like your James Hype and things like that, because they really do have an impact on people within that crowd. And one of the things I get a little discouraged by is some of the guys who, you know, they kind of joke about being button pushers and so forth. But yeah, if you're a real DJ, you know, I would always say, or if you're wanting to become a DJ, the impact that you can have, and it had it on you, right? I mean, that was the thing. Your first club you went to, they were playing big room. They were playing the big room hits. This is during the golden era, obviously. And I just look back on that and then how that's, you know, changed history, if you will, and how that's kind of changed your trajectory through music. Because maybe if you don't go there, and you said if your first experience was with a crappy DJ playing Little John or whatever, then maybe we're not at this point here today with Kaotix. Yeah. I always want to kind of reiterate that with up and coming DJs, like you can have that type of positive impact on people.
You can 100%. And, you know, going back to the whole, you know, local DJ thing, I remember my first, I wouldn't call it a big show, but it was a decent show because it was who I was opening for. And that was Riggy and Piros.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've heard their sets. I know what they've been playing at the time. It was like a mixture of like some bass music, some dubstep. I was like, oh man, I play big room. They're definitely not going to want me to open. Right. So it's like, I'm talking with the promoters, I'm talking with the other DJs, and Riggy and Piros's tour manager contacts all of us. And he's like, hey, I want to be somewhat involved in the structure of who's going to be playing when it comes to the show. Cause you know, obviously Riggy and Piros are my clients and they're the headliners, and I want a perfect show. I want everyone to send me a 15 to 30 minute mix. And we're like, okay. So we all sent them a 15 to 30 minute mix. I think mine was around like 20, 25 minutes. I try to maximize that whole thing. I want someone to get like the full experience, right? It's like in 15 minutes, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like I need at least 20, 25, right? So I sent my mix in. Originally, the way it was supposed to go was there was supposed to be this open format opener as people walked in. Then I was supposed to play my big room stuff, and then there was supposed to be this other guy who came in who was going to play some more dubstep, like hard style stuff at the end, and then Ricky Imperios was going to come out. And turns out that the tour manager, who's also Chami's tour manager, gives the promoter a call, and he goes, "We're going to have to put some terms in this contract." And he's like what? And he goes, "So this guy Kaotix, I know he's supposed to play like way in the beginning, but no, he's opening for Ricky Imperios." And when I heard that, I was like, "Wait, what?"
Oh, shit.
Like, and that was my first experience ever opening up for someone like pretty big, you know, like Ricky Imperios played on Sirius XM all like every day, right? And they get like millions of streams per song, and it's like, oh man, like my heart was pounding, right? I was nervous as hell, and it was so interesting, you know. Like I went on stage, I did my thing, and James wanted to come out, and James Piros, he wanted to come out and listen to my set, and he comes up on stage, you know, getting ready, putting his USB in. He's like hanging down below the CDJs, and he's like giving me dabs, and he's saying, "What's up, dude? Like, keep doing it, bro. This set's fucking fire." And I'm like, this is pretty interesting. It was a pretty interesting moment in my career. I was like, where am I right now? Like, what's going on?
Isn't
this
that
a
the best
dream?
feeling though?
It really is. It really is. It was pretty interesting, and it was pretty cool hanging out with them after the fact too. You know, it's like I'm hanging out with these guys who get played on the radio, like Sirius XM radio, that the whole world gets to hear every day. And I've been listening to these guys since I got into this, and it's like I'm talking to them like they're you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's so weird. You would think like, oh my God, famous person. Like no, like me, I was just like, yo, let's go get some beer from down the street and get like more lit or whatever. You know, it's like it was a very interesting thing.
Yeah,
you know,
famous people don't want you to talk to them like, oh my God, you're famous. Mm-hmm. Like they want you to talk to them like we're bros.
No. And you know, I'll be honest too. It kind of angers me a little bit. Not to go off on a tangent here, but like, not that it angers me, but it's kind of like it's a little weird when people hit me up on Instagram and stuff, and you know, like the message requests from people who like recently follow, who want to say like, "Hey man, I listen to your music and I love your music. Just keep doing what you're doing." And sometimes I'm pretty reluctant to answer them, and I like answering people on Instagram because like those are your fans. Yeah. You know, like those are people who really like you. Then you answer them, and they start getting a little weird. They start hitting you up every day, like you're gonna hang out with them tomorrow or go get lunch with them.
Hey buddy,
it's like,
how's it going?
Hey, you know, like coffee later.
You know, you got that's one thing you got to learn too. You know, when you get in a position like I don't want to say like me, I don't think I'm anything that crazy. You know, like I don't know if you guys want to get into the topic of who I think is the next big thing or anything like that.
We can.
We got about 15 minutes. We can.
I know I'm gonna get asked that, but when it comes to I had a brain fart. What were we talking about?
We were talking about being treated. Yeah. Okay. We'll go.
So we're gonna go into that.
Fuck it. We're going right.
We're just gonna go straight. Who do I think is the next big thing?
Let me formally ask you, Kaotix.
Okay.
Before you leave today, who do you think is going to be the next big underground artist to break through?
Would you guys consider Hussman and Axmo as underground artists?
Semi.
No.
I mean,
they're in rave culture in Mexico. Now, listen, is it underground compared to like the general public? Like, right? Like,
yes, that's what I mean, though.
Like, the casual person here in San Diego, where I'm from, or Florida, and you know, yeah, they don't know who those guys are necessarily speaking.
They don't.
But in our so like they know like Taylor Swift, so like that's a mega superstar. But in our realm, if you're on Maximize and you're on rave culture consistently,
it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I don't think that those guys are necessarily underground artists. But how I do agree, though, I will say this, and I know where you're going with this, Kaotix. Hussman is probably the most, or one of the most talented guys and hardworking guys in the industry that we have.
I agree.
And he should be more of a household name. He should have those million followers on Instagram. He should,
most definitely.
Million streams on every
I can see why he doesn't, and that goes into something we can talk about another time, really, is, you know, with posts analytics and all that kind of stuff, content to post and stuff like that. Why Instagram? Because if you look at his Instagram compared to his Spotify,
right?
And I don't like that comparison. I'll see some label owners and some other people talk about like, well, look at their Spotify and then look at their Instagram. There's a huge differential going on here. I'm like, well, some people don't really care to follow the Spotify. They just care about the music. They don't really.
Yeah.
But if you kind of make it balance out a little bit, and even it up, give them some content to look at while they're waiting for the next release or whatever it is, whatever. Yeah, he doesn't have that many followers on Instagram, but if you look at his Spotify, it's pretty good.
He's been husband's pretty good.
Yeah, he's great, and he's done
putting
so
in that work
much behind the scenes. I think that to me, like the music is fantastic, but how much he has an imprint on different labels. We know, obviously Maximize with Blaster Jacks, he's credited on a lot of things on Spotify. He does so much behind the scenes that the general person, even the casual fan in EDM, probably has no idea how much he's touched.
No idea. Like he had his hand in Tarzan with Armin van Buuren and Blaster Jacks. He helped produce that track. There was another one with Blaster Jacks, Party something. I can't remember
There's
what it was.
There's a lot of Blaster Jacks.
There's a lot. I think Tom and Eater made pretty good friends with him, and he's been helping them out with a lot of tracks, and he's accredited to helping with a lot of those tracks. He's a big Ghost producer. A lot of people don't know that. You've probably heard a Husband track that was Ghost producer. You didn't even know it. Yeah. He's open about that. He's got his Patreon where you can, download his sounds, get some very interesting tracks.
Can we talk about his sounds? His sounds are amazing.
They're pretty good, and I'll be honest, I'm a big user of his sounds. But if we want to talk about my like the way I produce and stuff, if anyone has watched my YouTube tutorials on how I've made my tracks and stuff, I like to take a sound, like maybe from like a Silent pack or a Spire pack or whatever, and completely remanipulate it. And Hussman's sounds are definitely like my go-to sounds, where I'll be like, this sounds cool, but let's see where we can take this to the next step to where it doesn't sound like his sound at all. And it's very interesting because I feel like his sounds out of the box are already good. But to me, when it comes to messing with preset packs, I don't like to use it as is.
Yeah.
So I like to manipulate it a lot. And sound design is definitely a thing I got into as well. So, going to Hussman's sounds where they're already like, sound designed by him, and then taking those sounds and then re-sound designing them to another level. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But like, it's like, if I wasn't one of his Patreons, like the sounds I have today wouldn't be where they are.
Exactly.
And his sounds, I know, they come from like old Vengeance packs where he remanipulated those sounds. They come from Cymatics packs. He remanipulated those sounds. So it's like, we all just keep taking each other's sounds, remanipulating, and just constantly getting new sounds out of EDM. And that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's
Ty,
how the cookie crumbles.
Real quick, Ty. Now you have a successful radio show. You've been doing it for quite some time, so you see a lot of demos come through. A lot of talented young artists, and maybe not such talented folks coming. Do you have somebody that you get some demos from? You're like, man, this guy is just absolutely gold. Every time he sends me something, it is on the money. Do you have like kind of like an artist like that you run into?
Yeah, we all know Crime. Crime's a good one. DJ Crime.
Yeah. He's been red hot.
Kiro's a good one.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, I love his music.
Yeah, he had a
if we're still on that topic of up and comers, I like this. I like where we're going with this because hey, if I got any ones who come through my demo box all the time, it's Ty Hay.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Ty
I remember. I found him completely on accident, right? It was like I have a demo drop that I'm very, very, very ashamed to admit I don't listen to that much because people just say screw his demo box. I'm going to send it to him on Instagram, and I'll be honest, that's where I actually will listen to it.
It is easier though.
It is easier, and that's where I'm on the most. So if you send it to me there, it's like your priority. And by the time, like, I already heard all these tracks and I've already built up a playlist, it's like, shit, I have a full episode, right?
You're about to get 1,000 DMs after this episode.
I probably am. And be like, oh, so Instagram's where I send it. Okay, gotcha. Kaotix, listen to my demo. Go ahead, do it because I probably will listen to it. And I remember he did not send it to me on Instagram. He sent it to my demo drop. And I was like, for one episode, I was like, let's see what's in there. Oh my God, the list was so big of demos. I was like, okay, I'll listen to the first like 5. And I listened to the first 4, and I was like, not for me. And I listened to the 5th one, and I was like, all right, this Ty Hay guy, let's listen. His email was short, simple, to the point. Yeah. He knows how to send an email. Let's see if he knows how to make a track. And it was a Zed remix, and I was like, what? I picked up my phone. I instantly looked up his Instagram and followed him, and I was like, dude, I'm going to play your track tonight on Mass Chaos. He's like, what? No way. And I'm like, dude, like, any track you have from this point on, that's like, awesome. Here's my personal email. Just send it there after that. And it's crazy that him and I are like good friends now. Like, he's a really cool guy. I mean, we all talk to him. You know, he's a great dude. And I think he's another big up and comer that people should be keeping their eyes on, because his production quality gets just higher and higher and higher and higher every time. And he makes some very different big room music.
Yeah, he has his unique sound.
He's got a
sound, and that's what we need more, is uniqueness. You know, back then everyone was always like, sounds like Sabers, right? Yeah. Sounds like Sabers.
No, I've never said that in my life.
I've never said that either. Because you know, if you're a real Sabers fan, which, you know, I am, and I'm sure like you guys are too, real Sabers fans, you can differentiate Sabers from someone who's clearly influenced by Sabers but took it a different direction.
Sabers,
and you know, I can understand from like a listener standpoint, who's not a producer, who doesn't listen to demos on a daily, doesn't have a radio show, where you're trying to differentiate the sound of people. I can understand why they would be like, oh, that sounds like Sabers, sounds like Sabers, sound like Sabers. It's just like everything sounds like Sabers, where it's like, well, I mean, I didn't know just putting synths in your drop compared to like Cymatics Animal Call samples like we were doing in Revealed back in 2016, 2017. Now all of a sudden means you sound like Sabers. I think Sabers just brought this whole new trend of like, hey, let's use synths again in our drops. You don't have to be doing like these weird sound designed, like taking this elephant call and putting 30 distortion plugins on it to make it sound weird and pitching it up and doing these pitch bends. Like, use synths. Like, I feel like that was like their message, sort of, like, at least like if it wasn't a message, I clearly got it as a message. It was like, use synths again in your drops. And that's where I started with Kaotix, was like, I'm going to use synthesizers in my drops. I'm not going to go for these weird samples. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to load up sounds and silent. Silent's my number one plugin. It's my bae. Like, I love silent, right? That's my bae. So, and like, I'll just go to town, make some melodies, play around. It's more fun that way. You know, I feel more of like a producer that way, right? And sound design is a lot of fun. You know, making your own sounds is a lot of fun.
Well, boys, we got about 10 minutes left in this podcast. So
nice.
Is there any advice you guys could give to the up and comers in the voice of the underground that can help somebody grow?
I got one. This one. I know, Kaotix, you are the pro here, but I'll tell you one that's from a different angle, right? Because there's always like, hey, check out, like, I hear it all the time. Check out YouTube tutorials, or check out this. You know what my biggest recommendation is, and it's kind of off the beaten path? Turn on your camera, turn on your mic. So, what I mean by that is an Intensity started a Discord, right?
Yeah.
And people want to do business with who they like and whom they trust.
Yeah.
And when you turn on your mic and when you turn on your camera, you develop this relationship with other artists, okay? And then they get to know who you are as a person. And maybe you're not quite there as a producer yet, but people want to be around people who they like, right? It's a friendly relationship. And in this COVID era where we're not exactly going out and we're not seeing each other face to face any longer, this right here is the best way to develop relationships. So it's kind of like almost in a sense giving your virtual business card to, and people want to work with you like that. So if you're a new producer, don't be afraid to turn on your mic. Don't be afraid to turn on your camera, because that's how we can develop a relationship with you. And then, you know, we can start to work together. That's what I would say is better than any YouTube tutorial, is let's start developing relationships within the community by doing things of this nature.
And that's how a lot of us met too.
Yeah, that's how we all met right here. Yeah, it was basically that, you know, like
Discord,
Yeah, Discords, and, you know, it started turning to like, holy crap, we're all going to Jay's, you know, Gaspar's show in California, and we're all gonna go like meet each other in person and go party and have a good time. Unfortunately, I had to miss out on that for testing positive for COVID-19, unfortunately, and I'm really angry about that. I'm really angry.
There's going to be another. But that's how I got discovered.
I hope, one of us has another show where we're all going to fly out to each other. But like, we developed a really good circle here, and hey, if I had any advice for up and comers and new guys getting into the scene, kind of piggybacks off what you said, Rob. Like turn on your camera, turn on your mic. If there's one thing I've noticed where I do see a lack in interaction with artists, is show your face. Yeah. No one gives a crap if you're ugly. No one gives a crap if you're beautiful looking. Like, do I think I'm the best looking guy in the world? Yeah, no. No, I definitely don't think so. You think so, but no, I don't think I'm the best looking guy in the world. But it's like, whatever, man. I want people to see the face of like who makes the music they like to make. You know, it's like behind it. Yeah, the person behind who's making like this music, and when people just like their Instagram profiles, like their logo and like their entire feed is like all the album artworks of all their upcoming tracks and all the previous tracks. It's like, you're not really giving me much, dude. It's like the only thing I'm looking forward to is your next release, and then after that, I'm forgetting about you. Yeah. And if you like, Instagram's a beautiful tool. Everyone, I hate social media, but I love it at the same time, right? I have a love-hate relationship with it. My love relationship with it is that it could really help you get to where you want to be. And I've basically made pretty much my entire career off Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it was based off showing my face, making my ranting stories that everyone knows me for, right?
Love them.
Yeah.
Just giving people content, and it wasn't always about music. It was always about ranting about the music industry or ranting about what's going on in the scene right now. And they got people engaged. You don't have to do that. Figure out your own thing that you like to do, but show your face. And if you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm just gonna give you a fair warning that if you don't, it's not gonna be easy. Because who wants to book somebody who hides behind a PNG of their logo that's on their Instagram profile, And everyone wants to make a living off this, right? You're not going to make a living off streams. Yeah, you're going to make a living off the shows.
And Kaotix, I think you brought this up the other day. There's only a few people that can show or be behind a mask, like Marshmello and Deadmau5 and all that too.
Right. Yes, you were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
But those are corporate entities. Those are Marshmello is a corporate entity. It's it's not Marshmello. Yeah. It's the company of Marshmello.
Exactly. And this is maybe like kind of like tip number 2 that kind of coincides with like tip number 1 is that you got to remember, like, you're not just making music, sending it off to a label, and then it's in their hands now. It got signed. You signed the contract, and now you can just step back and not do work. First of all, when I get a label release, I am typing away email after email after email, DM after DM, like, hey, would you support this? Would you support this? Would you support this? Would you support this? Like, I'm doing work that the label should be doing, but like I'm doubling the work. So that way the label's doing the work, I'm also doing the work, right? So
and real quick before DJ Guy, he is I saw firsthand when he signed a track to Intensity. He didn't leave it in their hand. Now, Intensity does a fantastic job of promoting you. That's a whole nother subject.
They do a great job. Yeah.
But what DJ Guys, he gets it out himself, right? So if every door and every floor has, like his old sales term, right? Every door hasn't been touched, he'll touch it, right? And that's how he develops relationships with people. But he basically, even though he has a signed track, he treats it like a self-release. And it's one of the best qualities. And when I first started, that's, he was in a group in which I hung around a lot. And he kind of showed me that, to your point, how to really do that.
And for people who don't know, who are listening, DJ Guy, I actually know him in person. Like, him and I have done shows together. Yeah. And he is probably the furthest thing from bashful. He will put himself out there, and that's what he does. And I feel like that's where a lot of his success comes from too, is I see a lot of guys out there, and I know sometimes I can be like that too. Sometimes I can be like that guy who's kind of a little shy, doesn't want to intrude on somebody or whatever, but, it's something I'm working on and trying to change. Is that, I don't want to bother anyone, but screw it, bother them. Just see what they say. Don't like spam them. But send them a message and see what happens. Like people, we got to remember, you DM someone who's got a blue check mark on Instagram and they respond back to you. You're no longer in their requested DMs. Now you're in their primary DMs, which means you DM them again 2-3 months down the road. Like, hey, you want to support this new track I'm working on? They're gonna get a notification on their phone that you just DM them. It's no longer like, oh, I got like 37 requests of messages. Let's see what they say. You're in their prime. They got a notification you sent, but like, I want to go back to the whole thing of like tips, like with the branding and the whole like Marshmallow is a corporation type thing. People need to remember that, like, sending out your track to a label and calling it quits. It's like, you got to remember you're a brand at the end of the day.
Yep.
And you might not be today, but someday down the road, you're going to be a brand. And I told you guys this before. I had like a revelation I had when I was at a festival. Was like, I remember sitting in like the middle of the whole festival grounds at Electric Zoo in New York City, and I see like Cascade, Res, Gasly, and it's like all their logos on the screen with their own personal visuals, and I'm like, this is like, I literally just changed the words from like Pepsi Cola, Chipotle, Nike, Adidas, and I'm
branding.
like, it's branding. It's there's nothing different about this. It's just the product we're selling is music. And I thought that was pretty interesting. That was a pretty interesting thing that like kind of like changed my aspect and the way I thought about all this stuff, was that it's a brand. You got to show your face and you got to brand. If you don't want to show your face, you got to figure out a way to hide it, because they're going to want to book you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to want you to perform, play a show, entertain people. And if you're hiding your face behind a PNG logo on your Instagram, those messages are never going to come to your inbox.
Yeah. Yeah. It all depends on what your goal is, right? Like,
right. If you don't want to, if you don't want to DJ, that's fine. But I mean, if you want to make a living off this, that's one thing. That's probably tip number 3. If you want to make a living off this, the living is off entertainment and performing. It's not off the stream. Streaming kind of killed the music industry when it comes to music sales.
Oh my God, yeah. 1/16 of a penny. 1/16.
Yeah, right. Like, it's like you're not really making much. I'll tell you right now, like, I've never made, like, I don't think I've seen a cent from any of my label releases. No. But my self-releases, I'm constantly looking at my TuneCore. It's like, oh, look, another few dollars here or there. I won't say how much, but it's like, cool. Like, I'm making money here, but it's nothing to support myself on,
And at the end of the day, it's not about making the money either. It's about making the music you love. The money will come eventually.
Yeah, the money will come eventually. Like, don't worry so much about the money. Like, I have a 9-to-5 job.
Same.
Like I got off work 2.5 hours ago, and then came up here to do this podcast. And I like what I do for a living, but I love more what I do in the studio. And eventually I want to be able to tell my job, like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. This is what I'm going to pursue now. Whenever that time comes, I don't know, but I'm very patient. So,
well, boys, we have a few minutes left in this podcast, and we can extend it too by making an audio version just for YouTube with a little or SoundCloud. So be on the look for that. But is there any last words in the last couple minutes that you guys want to tell these up-and-coming producers that might give them some motivation to keep going?
Yeah. So actually, I did just make a post about this on Instagram yesterday. Actually, I don't know if you guys saw it. There can be some like toxicity in the underground scene, and you're gonna see it everywhere. And if you saw my Instagram post, it was probably a weird comparison, but you can go see it for yourself. It's still up there. I don't think it is. But you're gonna see toxicity everywhere in any industry you get into that involves fame or money.
What about you, Rob?
Show up. Right. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is show up to the studio. Even if you're messing around, dedicate yourself, 2 hours a day. I know that we've talked about like an hour, 2 hours, 5, whatever, but just show up. I think consistency is the key in this. I've had times where I haven't been consistent, and I found that I have negative yardage, right? Like, I kind of forgot some of the techniques and some of the little things that I do, with even things like how I use the auto pan and the LFO tool and all that stuff. And I'm like, if I don't show up consistently, I tend to have negative yards. I tend to lose ground to the point where, okay, now I've got to kind of catch up again. So if you're showing up consistently on a daily basis and you have yourself a schedule, it doesn't have to be, I know a lot of guys work, but if you show up consistent, eventually you're going to break through. It might be 1 year from now, 10 years from now, whatever. If you're consistent, it will happen, and it's going to happen. And that's what I would tell people.
I agree with Sam. Yeah. Just put in the hard work, make what you love, and every idea is not going to sound amazing, but keep working on it, and eventually it will sound great. You could catch Robert Go at Instagram.com/RobertGo. You could catch Kaotix at Kaotix Music, right? On Instagram? Or is it Kaotix? Yep.
Kaotix Music.
Yeah. And you can catch myself at Young Ty on Instagram. This is the Voices of the Underground. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kaotix and Robert, for being here. We want to do this more, so be sure to be on the lookout for this. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ty. Appreciate
Take care.
it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.